Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Sunday, February the 18th. Welcome to our video commentary. Today, we're going to deviate a little bit from all the current events and talk about something that happened on this day, February 18th, 1885. And that's the publication of the book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, one of the great books of Mark Twain and some would say American literature. Many, many years ago, when I was a little kid, I read that book in Cuba. Now, it was not the full book because I was still too young probably to read the full book, but I remember it was like a kid's edition, or you know how they do these kids' books were with lots of illustrations. And I read it, and I read it in Spanish actually, and it was really a lot of fun. My imagination just went crazy with Huckleberry Finn and the river and Jim the slave and everything else that was going on. And once we came to the United States, a few years later, we took a trip in 1967 to watch a baseball game in Minneapolis. And we went through the Mississippi, and I remember thinking about the book and the fact that I was actually driving over the river that was a big part of that book. Now, years later in college, a few years later, I read the book. I read the full book. I had an English teacher who recommended that I read it, and I did, and I enjoyed it a great deal. But obviously, I read the book now a bit older, a bit wiser, you might say, and more understanding of some of the racial sensitivities of the book. But I still enjoyed it just as much. I mean, it is really a great read, very entertaining book, to say the least. Obviously, the book has a lot of dialect from the South at that time, a lot of expressions that are very difficult to understand. And the book, yes, it uses the N word. It uses the N word often. And one of the characters in the book, of course, is Jim, the slave, the runaway slave, who Huck and Tom get involved with. Recently, I've heard that there is a school that wants to ban The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And they want to do it because of the N word. They feel that the N word is offensive to some of the African Americans in the college. And I understand why it is offensive, but I also think that one has to leave the past the way it is, learn from it, rather than try to delete it from our history. It's like the statues and these monuments to the Civil War. We don't want to bring them down. We want to learn from them. And if we want to put them in context, that's fine with me. But don't tear it down. I mean, what's the point of that? And I think to ban this book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, is to deny a kid like me sometime in the future the opportunity to read that book and get my imagination going about the Mississippi River and all of that I, obviously enjoyed it a great deal as a kid. I think it's also the wrong signal because you can actually look at many things and begin to find them offensive 100 years later or 200 years later. I'll just give you a couple of examples. A lot of the people who march with Che Guevara T-shirts, do they know what Che Guevara said about blacks and Mexicans? I don't think so, because if they did, they probably wouldn't be marching with his T-shirt. Look at Cesar Chavez. You have streets and parks being named after him. Well, he wasn't exactly the most tolerant person in the world when it came to illegal immigration. In fact, he was, in many ways, as opposed to illegal immigration as any right-wing anti-immigrant person would be today. My point is that I think these people need to be left alone. These books and these people from the past, they need to be left alone. And we need to learn from their experience. We need to read about their lives and learn from it and move on so that, we don't repeat the same mistakes, obviously. But deleting these books, censoring these books, banning these books is not the right approach, in my opinion. So I hope that the school reconsiders The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and gives kids an opportunity to read the book. And the teacher, obviously, can always explain it and put it in proper context. That's okay with me. I don't have a problem with that. But let's not ban books. That's what they did in Cuba. And we left Cuba because of stuff like that. Have a great day, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas. Happy Sunday to all of you. We have all of these commentaries over at YouTube, on Twitter, as well as my blog. Bye-bye, everybody.